Hello, this is Mike Rasmussen, CPA Straight Talk for Small Business. Here's a topic: accountable reimbursement plan. What is it? What's it mean? What do I need to consider? I'm going to talk about if you're an employer, small business employer, and you have employees. So what it is an accountable reimbursement plan, and it is simply a formal document where you allow employees who incur business expenses on the employer's behalf, and you reimburse them. That's what it is. So if the employer actually formally adopts and identifies which expenses the employer is going to reimburse the employee, then the business will get a deduction for the payment, and the employee, it's non-taxable to the employee. It's not picked up in their gross wages. Okay, so if you have an accountable reimbursement plan specifically identifying expenses that the employer identifies, and I'll show you a sample of what a form might look like, and they allow for an employee to be reimbursed for employee business expenses for the convenience of the employer. The employee is reimbursed, and it's not included in gross wages for the employee, and the employer gets a business tax deduction at the entity level. There you go. That's how it works. So let me show you a couple documents so you can, for those of you that like to read along here. Accountable reimbursement plan includes business owners, employees often are required to pay expenses out of pocket on behalf of their employer or business, okay? Accountable plans work on the simple concept that if reimbursement payments to business owners and their employees are properly claimed and documented, they're not taxable to the recipient. For example, included in their gross wages. If reimbursements are not legitimate business expenses or are not properly documented, they are taxable income to the employees. Accountable plans are a flexible tool to incentivize employees to pursue business goals and to facilitate employee-owner deductions of expenses they incur in running their business. Okay, so what do you need to... In our other interview, we talked about Publication 587. One of the expenses that an employer could reimburse would be business use of your home. So when that being the case, what the employer could do is allow for a business use of your home. And how would they instruct the employee to do that? First, I'm showing you a sample accountable plan right here. And here it is, real simple. Here's an agreement to adopt an accountable plan. Accountable plan desires to establish an expense reimbursement policy pursuant to Section Reg 1.62-2 on these terms, except as otherwise noted in Part 2 below. Any person now or after employed shall be reimbursed for any ordinary necessary business and professional expenses incurred on behalf only if the expenses are adequately substantiated, and see the policy memo. Okay? Now, exceptions to the accountable plan. So let's say in here, it said what we're saying is all reimbursed for any ordinary necessary business expenses unless, and here's just real simple. So unless the employer excluded business use of your home, this would basically be a accountable reimbursement plan that would be adopted in the manual, in the HR manual, that an employee could follow, providing certain documentation. The expenses must be substantiated with a reasonable period of time. When you look down here to one, that must be 60 days or less after the expense is incurred. If the company wants to qualify for the fixed rate safe harbor, okay. So then all charges the company must be credit cards must be substantiated in the same manner. Okay, and that's not substantiated within a period of time. That's if you actually advance monies so a lot of times an employer will allow for an advance $500, and the employee has to submit back expenses, substantiate here back to the company, and if it's not $500, would have to either repay the company back, and that's just to not include in gross wages and be deductible by the employee. So here's a simple agreement for an accountable reimbursement plan. Now, then what a employer could do, go see my video on business use of your home. When you go to publication 587, you could specifically say to the employee, you can use the actual expense method or the simplified method. A lot of employers are just saying as one of the requirements in the sample account, their accountable reimbursement plan is employees are allowed to use the simplified method. And so I have seen many employers restrict to home office, business use of your home, to the simplified method for employees. Okay? So either way, this would just be now, and then the reason that this is happening is that the employer wants to know in this plan will reimburse for mileage, and allowing a business use of home deduction for an employee by an employer. Not only is it an incentive, but what does it do for that piece? It also, if one of the expenses is allowing a business use of the car and truck expenses to be reimbursed under this accountable reimbursement plan by the employer, if there is a home office case and deduction, then it's also really helping not only the business owner but the employee because of greater mileage. Okay, so and any travel, and so now that because the airlines, a lot of employees are not using airlines to travel, maybe intrastate, in addition to interstate, but intrastate, a lot of closer trips, 4, 5, 6 hours, are now being performed by car as opposed to flight. So now, when does that business mileage start? So it used to be travel to the airport and from the airport there, and that would be counted as business. Now it's going to be right out to your front door or your home if you've got a business use of the home. So what I would recommend is if you are a employer watching this, you can see how simple this is. Just do you have an accountable reimbursement plan for your employees? And why you should take a look at it is especially if you have travel that normally had been occurred on air flights that are severely restricted during the pandemic, and now that you're having allowing employees to have home offices, consider modifying your HR manual and having an accountable reimbursement plan to have the simplified method for home office deduction. Remember, that's $5 up to 300 square feet of a specific, exclusive, and regular place of business for the employee, and then that substantiates the beginning car and truck expense mileage that would be reimbursed. Now, if you're an employer, make sure that you are aware of the notice 2019-2020. Well, 29 to 2020, these are per diem rates. It's notice 2019-55. I'm not going to have somebody show you where it's at or have your advisor, but bottom line, what these are is per diem rates for taxpayers used substantiating ordinary necessary business pay while traveling away from home. And then there's special rates for what's called industry meal and incidental rates. This is in place for expenses from October 1 to September 30, 2020. That's the dates that apply. There are some old notices in here, but you can see, let me show you this real quick. the dollar amount, they call them high-low substantiation. If you travel away for business to a specific area, you're allowed to get reimbursed. Here it is, the amount of the $297 high rate and $200 low rate. What's a high rate? Here you go, Sedona, Arizona. So if you travel and do business in Sedona, Arizona, which I happen to be going to in the next couple days. If you travel, here's Napa, Oakland, San Francisco. You can see any of these, Delaware, District, Washington, D.C., Key West, there's Georgia. Any of these these are the new rates from October 1 of 19 to September 30 of 2020. So if you're an employer, just be aware that if you have employees, this is also if you're requiring your employees to travel away from home and substantiate any ordinary necessary business expenses to you under an accountable reimbursement plan. Go to this notice 2019-55 and or email me at mike@hitechcpa.com, and I can email you a copy of just to the link to it. It's or just look it up on the internet. So in summary here, there's an accountable reimbursement plan. So if you're an employer, you have employees that are now or have always been incur business expenses for the convenience of you, the employer, you should adopt or have an accountable reimbursement plan policy. You saw was a page, real simple. Here's what I allow with the exceptions of this. Here's how you document, and here's what you need to provide. We focused on one of those being one of the allowable expenses that you would allow for an employee is to be the business use of your home, and suggesting using the simplified method, which then supports the beginning mileage for any car and truck expenses that the employee may request reimbursement from the employer. Not trying to be difficult here or not trying to be too detailed, but accountable reimbursement plan. Do you have one? And if you do, and if you also have employees traveling away on business and have ordinary business expenses in certain geographic areas, you can go to notice 2019-55, and there are per diem. All you have to do is document date, time, place, and purpose that you were there in one of those cities away overnight. But that amount, other than documenting the date, place, time, and purpose, other than that, all the receipts are per diem, so it saves headache for the employer and saves documentation for the employee, other than the normal substantiation, which is date, place, time, purpose of the travel expenses away from home. Okay? Mike Rasmussen, CPA Straight Talk. You can get me on Facebook Live, and if you do, go there and click live. I normally do Monday through Thursdays from 1 to 1:30ish Central Daylight Time, or you can go to our YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you go, and the reason why people do that is so more of this great information will get to you, which is timely, and or you can email me at mike@hitechcpa.com. Do you have an accountable reimbursement plan? If you're an employer, if you're an employee, ask. And consider business use of your home as one of the primary deductions that you should be asking for. And the reason why is especially due to that's the beginning point of your mileage documentation for any car and truck expenses that you're going to possibly submit to your employer. Or if you're a business, you are going to deduct on line 30 of your Schedule C as your business, or if you're a partner. So, accountable reimbursement plan. Simple. Get it done. Do you have one? Are you affected by one? And modify it for the pandemic with everybody, with allowing employees, or reinventing your business and you're now working primarily exclusively at home. Take care. Have a great day. See you next time.